Yes, good afternoon, my dear students. Welcome to the second session, English, the lesson entitled Two Gentlemen of Verona. So, in the last session, we met and discussed the lesson in detail. So, thereby, I had completed part 1. Today, I am commencing Two Gentlemen of Verona, session 2, part 2. So, today, let us have a recap of what we have studied in the last session. So you have come to know that the two gentlemen of Verona, so that is Nicola and Jacobo, had been selling their fruits, and the narrator and his companion so decided to buy fruits from them. So the driver Luigi so expressed it disapproval because of their because of their appearance. So then the narrator's companion tried his level best to know their discover their whereabouts. So then so we had a brief description and the lesson on the town Verona. Of that, the narrator had seen them doing other trades, undertaking other works, sitting beside the fountain, and they're doing shoe polishing work. And the poet, the narrator also was very much pleased with various trades they have been undertaking and running. And so the narrator is very much interested in their remarkable demeanor. So he observes their unremitting willingness to work and their zeal and enthusiasm in running their works, their profitable works, their productive works around the clock. Even once he had seen them selling newspapers at the midnight, and the narrator kept questioning them. So he wanted to know why they are doing such laborious and industrious works, but the two brothers kept it as a great secret. So they never revealed and disclosed anything about their personal matters. They did not disclose anything about their confidential matters. So finally, the narrator asked them to seek help from him if they wanted, because the narrator is going to leave Verona on Monday. So finally, so Jacobo opens up his mouth and requests him to help them take to take to Poleta, where the sister had been hospitalized. So convinced with his request, the narrator takes in his car driven by himself to Poleta, which is 30 kilometers away from the city square. City square. So there we have stopped the lesson, and today we shall continue the lesson under session 2. So I welcome once again to the online class session 2 on this occasion. So what happened? The on the following Sunday, the narrator drew them to the tiny picturesque village. So which is that picturesque village? That picturesque village is Poleta, so which is 30 kilometers away from the city square. So which has a panoramic scene surrounded on three sides by beautiful trees and lakes. So on the high up on the hillside, high up on the hillside, there are sheltering chestnut trees. On the other side, one could see the pine trees on the upper slopes, and beneath one could see a deep blue lake. So en route to Foleta, so sitting beside the narrator. So Jacobo kept directing the path to their actual and definite destination, like the pathfinder landed on the Mars surface, like our own Google Maps showing us path for our designated destinations. But the narrator was in his was merged or immersed in his own imagination and contemplation. So he was imagining and contemplating about their destinations, which could be of a humble dwelling, but at last they drew at they drew at a large, massive, and magnificent villa. So that is the hospital. That massive, magnificent villa was changed into a hospital, or it was transformed into an admittance, or it was converted into infirmary. So the hospital carries three names here: hospital, admittance, and infirmary. So that was reached their destination. So before the narrator scarcely believed his eyes, before he could recover his breath, his two little passengers leaped out of the car. So what did they do? They leaped out of the car like a cheetah, like a leopard, or like the deer. But the two brothers were known for their courtesy, said they don't like to remain unthankful and ungrateful to the narrator. So before disappearing from the scene, or before getting away from the site, so they promised and assured the narrator that they would not make unnecessary delay and they would get back to the car within an hour. So this is the promise they made. So before disappearing from the scene. So they also requested the author to go to a nearby cafe in the village for a drink. So after telling this, they disappeared beyond the corner of the wall and they went into the hospital. After some time, the narrator followed them. So the narrator wanted to follow them because he wants to discover their secrets, he wants to unravel their secrets, he wants to discover their confidential matters, he wants to study about their systematic plans. So that's why he had followed them. So he found, so what did he find? He found a grilled side entrance and he ventured towards that grilled side entrance. So after venturing towards the grill side entrance, he knocked, he rang the bell. He did not knock at the door, he rang the bell. And he could sense someone responding from inside. So ultimately what happened? So he did it with firm determination. So he determinedly did it. So a pleasant looking woman, my God, how pleasant her face is, how pleasantest her facial expression is. So a pleasant looking woman with a ruddy complexion, ruddy complexion. So what type of complexion the two boys had? So they had brown complexion, but this lady has ruddy complexion. So that is redness. Ruddy means redness, reddish complexion. So her face looked like the color of a ripened pomegranate, and also a steel rimmed spectacle. So a pleasant looking woman with ruddy complexion and steel rimmed spectacle. She was wearing a spectacle, that is specs. She was wearing a specs. So with a steel frame. So the spectacle, specs, the short form of spectacle is specs, and we also call it as goggle, G-O-G-L-E, goggle. So appeared. She appeared. She opened the door and appeared. So how did this fellow feel? he felt wonderstruck, he felt astonished to see that pleasant looking woman in reddish complexion, so wearing a steel rimmed spectacle. This fellow was puzzled as he had seen her wearing white uniform of a trained nurse. So the woman opened the door to admit him. So as soon as he entered into the hospital from that grilled side entrance, so he informed that woman that he had brought the two boys there. So the woman felt very happy, very happy, and her face lit off. So what happened to her face? Her face lit off. Lit off means her face brightened, her face illuminized, hearing to this good news. So she feel very much satisfied at his service because he had brought the two boys to the hospital. So after allowing him inside, she promised him that she would take him up. So she asked him to follow her. So he followed her meekly and politely. So she led him through a cool tiled vestibule. She led him through a cool tiled vestibule. So what is that vestibule? Small enclosed area inside the hospital. The vestibule is small enclosed area inside the hospital. So she led him through a cool tiled vestibule into the hospital. After that, they traversed. They walked through a polished corridor. She walked through a waxed and polished corridor in between well equipped wards. So these corridors we can see usually in hospitals. They are found in between wards, usually in colleges, universities, and big complexes. So they are called corridors. So a corridor is an enclosed area on all the three sides. So a passage, as we say, is different from a corridor. So they traverse through a waxed, polished corridor located in between well-equipped wards. So after that, they went upstairs. So she took him to the first floor into the southern balcony. So at last they reached the southern balcony of the hospital in the first floor, where so the balcony is opened. The balcony is opened. It is open to a vista. Vista means view or sight that are visible. A vista of gardens. So from balcony, so one could see so spacious lawns and gardens, beautiful and attractive gardens, and also a deep blue lake beneath. So that is a panoramic sight. So that's why we call it as a picturesque village. That is Poletta. So what did she do here? So after taking him to the southern balcony, so they walked further. So after walking for a few minutes, so standing at the entrance of a cubicle, so at last they came to the cubicle. Standing at the entrance of the cubicle. What is a cubicle here? Very small enclosed area. Standing at the entrance of the cubicle, so she stopped for the moment. So after stopping for the moment, she summoned. What did she do? She summoned the narrator. She called the narrator to go closer to her. So he went close to her. So when he had gone very close to her, so she asked him to look through the glass partition. So standing near the window pane, she asked him to look through the glass partition. So that is the glass partition. Partition means division or bifurcation. So here we remember one historical incident, the partition of India, the division of India in 1947. How was India partitioned? It was partitioned into two different nations, Hindustan for Hindus and Pakistan for Muslims. After dividing India into Hindustan and Pakistan, the British gave independence to us. So that is the historical fact. So now the narrator started looking through the glass partition. So he is looking through it. He looked through it. When he looked through the glass partition, so he could see the two boys, young and energetic boys, seated by the bedside of a woman, of a girl. So that girl is none other than their own sister named Lucia. So that Lucia was also a professional singer. She had been training herself as a singer. So there she had been hospitalized. She had been undergoing treatment for about 12 months and she had been making steady progress. So sitting beside their sister, so they have been chit-chatting. They have been discussing some personal matters, family matters, and they are exchanging their pleasantries. So the narrator kept observing all these developments through that glass partition. And he had also observed that they were amicably and lowly discussing their personal and family matters. So this woman or this girl Lucia, so wearing a pretty lace jacket with her soft and tender eyes, propped up on the pillows, she was listening to her brothers, listening to her brothers. So listening to her brothers talking lovably, affectionately, and amicably. So that's what they have been chattering. So this made the author to feel astonished. So it is a great wonder. He felt wonderstruck. So you could also see a table by her bedside upon which a vase of wild flowers, a dish of fruit, and several newspapers have been placed for the sake of her sister. So after looking at this, so the narrator felt. So how did he feel? So he thought, oh, what a blissful relationship, what is divine bondage. So he thought to himself, what a blissful relationship, what a divine bondage, what a fantastic reciprocity and rapport. So he thought to himself. After a while, the trained nurse, the trained nurse talked to him. She compelled him to go inside the ward, to get into the ward, so that Lucia would be pleased to see him. But this narrator could not go. He did not want to interpose, he did not want to interfere in their personal matters. So he did not want to act as an intruder into their happy family party. So he nodded his head, he shook his head and turned away. So he did not go. He shook his head and turned away. He nodded his head and turned away. So after that, what happened? So they came down the stairs. So standing at the base of the staircase, standing at the foot of the staircase, so this narrator requested that lady, begged that lady, drawing very closer to her, he begged that lady to all about about those boys, tell all whatever she had known about those boys. So the head nurse was eager to do so. She was willing, she was interested in giving an explanation, in giving a description relating to these two boys, their life history, their transactions, their feelings, their dealings, okay, and their affection and affinity towards their sister, and how they became orphans. So, how this fate had deteriorated their lives, how this fate brought misery to their lives. So, she was eager to do so. So, she gave a brief explanation. She told the narrator that they are all alone in this world. So, these two boys are all alone in this world. That means they are almost orphans, except for their sister Lucia, who is still alive. So these, their father, she told, was a great singer, was a well-known singer. He was a widower. So when he was alive, so he had been singing at La Scala and looking after the welfare of his family. And the family was known known as a comfortable and cultured, known for its comfortable and cultured life. So they could lead a comfortable life when their father was alive. So his father, a widower, a well-known singer at La Scala, had been killed. See the dirty tricks, cunning tricks played by the fate, the destiny, had been killed in the early part of the war. So the children lost their father. So they became orphans. So after a while, a bomb had destroyed their home, so which ultimately threw the children to the streets. They became houseless. Now they became orphans and they also became houseless. So this is the pathetic condition of these boys. So what happened here when after the death of their father, so they had been horribly suffering from near hunger, near starvation. They had horribly been suffering from near starvation, so malnutrition. They are not only horribly suffering from near starvation, but also being exposed to the cold and freezing Veronese winter. So for months, somehow they had survived themselves. Somehow for months, somehow they had barely survived themselves. So their life had been sustained. So in a sort of house, sort of shelter which they had built with their own hands. So when these pathetic developments have been taking place, when these miserable conditions prevailed, so amidst these miseries and sorrows, again, again they had to face some serious consequences. So meanwhile, what happened? The German elite the German elite guard had committed aggression on Verona, occupied Verona, and established headquarters in Verona. For 3 dreadful years, these German elite guard ruled the city recklessly with ruthless severity. So, this is another great setback. So, deteriorating situation the boys had to face in their lives. So, meanwhile, the people of Verona, including these two young, energetic, and robust boys, disliked and hated these Germans, committing aggression, occupying Verona, and establishing there headquarters in Verona. So the boys were also very much disappointed with their presence in Verona. So at last, what happened? A resistance movement started in Verona. A resistance movement was organized. That is the process of liberation. So that resistance movement, when that resistance was organized, so these two boys were the first were the first among those who joined the forces of liberation. So when these two boys joined the forces of liberation, at a very young age, at a very young age, these two boys were selected. They were chosen. They were appointed as its secret agents. So secret agents. So to render their secret services. And at a very little age, at a very young age, they became the spies, doing espionage, doing espionage. So it was a risky business. It is a very dangerous business. It is a perilous undertaking. It is not an easy joke collecting information. So they were ascertained, and entrusted to collect information about the movement of German forces in Verona. So the deployment of their army guards, their cantonment, their garrisons, and the army barracks. So the two young energetic boys were willing to do that for the sake of their country. So this went on for a long time. Sometimes these boys had to walk through darkness in the mountainous passes, collecting information, sending information, and sometimes they had to send the secret papers inserted in their shoes. So the time was very good. So the good luck was on their side. They were fortunate. They were not caught red-handed. They were not caught and shot by the German elite guard. So this went on for a long time. So this spying activity, espionage activity, so their secret services collecting information of the movement of German elite guard had taken place for 3 long years. After that, what happened? Truce was agreed upon. Truce was agreed upon. Ceasefire had been declared. Ceasefire had been declared, and peace prevailed. So the German troops had been evacuated. So the German troops retreated from the Veronese soil. So the people of Verona felt relieved and rehabilitated. So Nicola and Jacobo felt extremely happy at their departure. So after undertaking these risky business or misadventurous business, they got back to their makeshift house. That was a makeshift house, so which they built with their own hands, which looked like a army bunker. So when they came back to their house, so what happened? They found that their sister was suffering from a chronic disease. She was suffering from a fatal disease, a deadly disease, so which she contracted during the miseries of war. So that is the tuberculosis of the spine. So the two boys felt very desperate. They felt disappointed. So it was a great shock for them. So what to do? What not to do? So they were helpless. So they were almost orphans. They were houseless. They were parentless. So they had to take care of everything. So finally, they decided to take the girl to the hospital in Poletta. So there they requested and begged and persuaded the medical personnel and paramedical personnel to get their sister hospitalized. And their sister was hospitalized under some terms and conditions. So they had to bear unaffordable medical expenses. They had to bear they have to pay the medical bills regularly. So these were the conditions laid, but these two boys were undaunted. They never felt nervous. They never felt frightened. So they never thought of taking back. So agreeing to their terms and conditions, accepting their terms and conditions. So what happened? The sister got hospitalized. So that is the large, massive, and magnificent villa. So after getting admitted, so what happened? So they kept doing some works. So still the difficulties prevailed. Still the difficulties prevailed. So there was scarce of food. There was scarce for food, and it was very expensive. And there was unemployment. So unemployment prevailed. So there was scarce for jobs. So amidst these difficulties, the boys kept working. So they worked industriously. They worked around the clock for the sake of their sister, for the welfare of their sister. So now, after getting her sister hospitalized, so they keep visiting the hospital every weekend for the payment of bills. So this keeps their sister going, and their sister had been under their care for 12 months, and she had been making very good progress. So one day she is going to become a normal human being. So one day she is going to walk and sing again. So this is what the nurse explained to the narrator. But after listening to the narrator, this one nurse, so the narrator came back to his car, and he was sitting in his car. He was waiting for the arrival of the two boys. So when the two boys arrived, so he drew them back to the city center. On the way, so back to the city center, the public square, so they kept silence. So the narrator could not ask them any questions. He did not want to do any exploration or discovery. So he did not want to ask them about their secrets, about their plans. So he kept silence. The boys sitting beside him were also silent. They were in a mood of they were in a mood of quite contentment. For this silent epic of faithful devotion, so he remains thankful to them. So that makes him feel very pathetic towards these two boys. War with its attendants errors and errors, had not broken their spirit. So they are with the same strength and vigor, with the same zeal and enthusiasm, had been working, had been running so many business for the sake of their sister, and it went on unhindered. It went on unhindered. So, what did the poet think? So the poet found some beautiful things, beautiful qualities in their remarkable demeanor. So what happened? Their selfless action had brought a new nobility to human life, and a promise of a greater hope for the human society. Understand?